Today I thought I'd take a look at what I am talking about in terms of lingo when I am looking at a new deck, when I'm reviewing a deck. I realize that some of my family members have no idea what I'm talking about, so I figured I'd make a little video to show you what I mean. So I am looking at a perfectly standard bicycle rider back playing card deck here. It is a little bit older. It's got the blue seal. This is its box. This is its tuck case. This sticker on the back is its tuck seal, and all of the faces within are what we call standard when we are referring to playing cards for the most part. Put these aside and take a look at the quartz. So bicycle cards generally come with these two jokers when they're produced by Bicycle, as opposed to just branded. This is going to be the standard rider bike Bicycle 808 Ace. And then we have our full quartz of spades, clubs, move these guys off, diamonds, and hearts. When we're talking about pips, of course, we're talking about either the club, diamond, heart, or spade. And when I'm talking about a suicide king, it's usually the king of hearts. He's got a little dagger there pointing at his head. One-eyed jacks are the spade and the heart jack. And in addition, you'll see that they have, like, the queens are kind of heavily lidded. They're all carrying their little flowers. And this is just what a standard court looks like when reviewers are talking about a standard court. When you look at the, well, not that deck in particular, when you look at the top of decks that are a little fancy, it will say standard faces, and you know that the deck within has this design for the cards. You do have to be careful when you see standard faces if you're looking for a deck to play and you want the cards to be identical, that when you see that standard face, you know that the colors aren't necessarily going to be standard. If we just take out one of the cards here, you can see that this Queen of Diamonds is identical to this Queen of Diamonds in terms of art, but of course the colors are very different. This one has a nice metallic ink to it, but you wouldn't necessarily want to play cards with this one and this deck. You want them to be matching faces. Another thing to look out for is cards that say retro face. So retro face is going to look similar, but they're not going to be identical to that. They're going to have a more old-timey feel, and also the pips themselves are slightly different. Nice fat pips, and then the nice old ace of spades, and then the royalty, similar but not exactly the same. Especially the queens are a little bit less heavily lidded, and this is what I mean by heavily lidded. Take a look at the Queen of Spades here. See how dark and prominent her eyes are, whereas the retro face is a little bit lighter. But otherwise, they're both holding flowers, and I don't think it'd be that confusing to play with these two decks together. Moving on, when we're talking about non-standard faces, you can go anywhere from this deck of bicycle cards, which has what appears to be standard faces but off at an angle. A little funky there. And of course these colors would drive me crazy if I was trying to play with them, because green and dark blue shouldn't be in cards if I'm playing with them. It just makes me confusing. But you can tell from the back of this deck, they're fully advertising that yes, our hearts are going to be green, and this is what it's going to be: a bicycle deck with a normal rider back with interesting other colors. You can also look at a card like these Stellar cards, Stargazer, sorry, Stellar is a different deck, and the faces are going to be standard, but the entire feel of the deck is totally different. Our jokers are fancy, and our courts, well, identical in terms of design, have completely crazy colors that match the theme of the deck. These are super cool though. I love these, but again, you can play a game of gin or whatever, but you wouldn't want to play a game where you're playing two people and it's fast, like Spit or Nerds. Another thing that I often talk about when I'm talking about my cards is whether or not there is an embossed finish, and that's just when it, or letterpressed, just when the deck itself has a little raised, I don't know if you can see that since this is white, there you can, little raised printing on it, and it's feely, which is always nice. And of course there are metallic inks. This one's a really nice, I'm sorry, this is foil. Metallic is something different. So this is a metallic ink, and you can see that it is looks like tin foil, painted tin foil, whereas this other bicycle deck, which is actually by Theory 11, is a metallic ink, but it's not as shiny as this. It's definitely not flat like some of the other inks, but those are the difference. And if we actually take a look at the cards inside, the backs inside, the metallic ink on this fancy bicycle deck comes through, and the same with this Theory 11 bicycle deck. It's a little hard to tell with the light I'm using, but it's really quite beautiful. I actually much enjoy these Theory 11. The fronts also have that nice metallic sheen to all of their cards, including the pips and regular old cards. Sometimes just the quartz are fancy. And finally, the type of cards that I normally am going to be attracted to and interested in collecting are going to be art decks. They're going to be decks that don't look anything necessarily like that bicycle deck. I have my House of the Rising Spade deck here. I got this off of Kickstarter. Sponsored it a couple of months ago, got it within the last couple of weeks. It's got metallic inks on the outside, as well as that raised embossing letterpress. It's just a beautiful tuck case, which is again the box. And then when we open it up, the inside's really fancy, and then the cards are completely wacky and non-standard. We've got this beautiful back design, and then when we flip it over, these cards are just an art piece. We've got weird the pips aren't even in the corners. The layout of the pips is completely unexpected, and then our quartz are these crazy beautiful kind of medieval design. I can do a review on this deck another time, but it is just a stunning deck, and this is an example of a deck that's completely non-standard. If people are talking about gilded cards, what they're talking about is the application of a metallic finish to the side of a card, making it nice and shiny. This is the Barada playing cards that I got off of Kickstarter a while ago now. The foiling on the side, the gilding on the side, tends to make the cards a little thicker than you might maybe want to play with or do magic with, but that's what we're talking about when we say gilded edges, and that's different from a metallic ink or a foil stamping. And then finally, some people get really fancy with their tuck cases, like this Snowman Factory tuck case has this little camera aperture that opens up and reveals a sinister looking reindeer. So that's pretty interesting as well, whereas the cards themselves are inside this other completely non-standard tuck case, and the jokers, aces, and courts are completely non-standard. So I just wanted to go over those terms to make sure that folks in my immediate audience knew what I was talking about when I was talking about different aspects of playing cards.